Weird happenings at the end of the half in the Chargers-Broncos games as Vic Fangio with an
Weird
immense...
and delicious. Weird and delicious.
I mean, yeah, listen, when you can decide you're going to kick that 60-plus yard field goal and then not do it and then get your kicker pissed at you, you got to do that.
Yeah, but this is Drew Lock's inaugural start under center.
You're not going to win. You're not going to let it be about Brandon McManus. That's for damn sure. Hey, Locke, to your credit, and all the Locke truthers out there, looked pretty good so far. Not overwhelmed, and knows what to do with the ball. I would love to be overwhelmed by you people out there in the chat room. Hit us up with anything you want us to talk about. Questions for the late game, your thoughts on the early games, whatever it is, we're here to talk about it. We're here to go back and forth about it. Now, Liz, I know that we both have thoughts on this Chiefs-Raiders game, which is also in halftime right now. But all of these afternoon games, by the way, we've got a couple of zero spots out there. Cardinals, no points. Raiders, no points. But let's jump right into that game right now. 21-0 at half, the Chiefs over the Raiders. Mahomes is obviously looking great. Tyreek Hill's made some explosive plays. Darrell Williams found his way into the end zone as a receiver.
Right.
Very nice. That backfield still looks like something I don't really want to be involved in any way with Damian Williams out. But we both want to talk about this Raiders side of the ball because, I mean, talk about nothing going right for this team so far. Derek Carr, 50% completion rate, 2 interceptions, 35.8 passer rating. That's not what you want to see. We both talked about this. Look, I'll give you credit on this. You said this was not a trap game last week when the Jets beat the crap out of the Raiders.
Right.
And now here we are. They're getting their teeth kicked in again.
So to me, this is I think there's a couple of things going on here. To me, the Raiders are, as I often say when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And the Raiders are certainly a team that I did not believe to be explosive. Yes, Gruden has put his players in excellent positions to succeed and go beyond expectation. However, I do think without Hunter Renfrow, who has a punctured lung, Derek Carr, who is a quarterback we know likes to check down the ball, is missing a safety valve, and that is particularly triggering for him. I mean, in this situation, you would think, why isn't Josh Jacobs catching balls? Why isn't he involved in the passing game at all? We know he has the skill set. And also, why isn't Tyrell Williams getting more run? Because Derek Carr don't want to throw the ball deep. And that's what he's going to need to do if he's going to catch these Chiefs who are on fire.
Yeah, I talked about this with Tyrell Williams today on FFL. Wrote about it in a column too, my weekly fantasy preview piece. I talked about how this is a really similar setup to what we saw with the Chargers and Chiefs in Mexico City and their deep threat, Mike Williams, which is that, look, I think the Raiders can run on the Chiefs, right? We know that. Just like we knew the Chargers could run on the Chiefs, and they averaged 4.9 yards per carry, did Melvin Gordon in that Chargers running game. And look, Josh Jacobs, he's efficient on the ground with 14 carries, 95 yards, 6.8 yards per carry.
Don't hate it.
It's not the worst thing in the world if you played him in fantasy, but if you used him like at $33 in Yahoo Daily Fantasy, second-priced running back behind, second-priced human running back behind Christian McCaffrey, of course.
Right.
This is a little disappointing, especially because, like you said, there's no pass game usage here. What's his name?
Jalen Richard.
DeAndre Washington. He's got a couple targets. Jalen Richard has a target. These guys are getting run in the passing game, and I can't figure it out. Like, it's so weird.
11 targets total. We are at the half. Oakland is down by 3 scores, and Derek Carr has 12 attempts. That is bananas to me. He should be throwing the ball all over the yard, especially because we know Tyrell Williams, as you mentioned in FFL, is a deep threat who can score touchdowns, and he did it earlier this season, but I think there just isn't enough around. And also we have to talk about the fact that this Oakland Raiders O-line, at the top of the season, what do you want to say?
Outkicking expectations?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Outkicking expectations. They were going well beyond their expectations. But right now, they have started to crumble over the past few weeks, and they are just not as cohesive as a unit. And so, yes, Derek Carr also isn't, I think this is the point you're trying to make, planting his feet and having the time to throw deep, and also that's just not really in his DNA.
No, we've seen that he's definitely a guy that operates inside structure really well, but he's not that good, second read type of guy. Like
Impro.
Yeah, it's certainly not an improvisational
Right.
quarterback at all. And this is the problem for backs like Jacobs when it comes to fantasy, because even in a great matchup like this, again, just like that Melvin Gordon analogy from a few weeks ago, great spot can put up efficient yards on the ground, but there's just not a great ceiling here when the Chiefs are going to come in and roll you up. So that's the problem with people that consistently want to rank these running backs really high because of the matchup. You've got to consider the game script too. And look, if you have a bad defense, like the Chargers and the Raiders have bad defenses, the Chiefs are going to come roll up 21 points on you in the first half, and then the running is out of the equation.
Well, Melvin Gordon, though, in previous years, before the Austin Eckler treasure find, right, would have had a good amount of work in the passing game, and so this is a little bit distressing.
Yeah. No doubt. Let's hit up the chat room a little bit. Mick says that something from Facebook.
Blutarski.
There you go.
Mick Blutarski.
McCaffrey's regressing. I don't necessarily think so. This is like his worst game in 100 years. Certainly a lot of work on that body.
Yeah,
I see the wheels turning over there. So go ahead and say it.
I mean, you said it for me. I think that McCaffrey is an excellent player, but when you're touching the ball 30 times a game every damn week, trying to put the team on your back, we've seen what happens, whether it happens this year or it happens next year, because some of us are looking to 2020 with this being the last week of the regular season for fantasy players. I don't know, McCaffrey's probably going to be the #1 overall pick, right? Just like Saquon Barkley was, and then tell me what happened to Saquon Barkley.
Right. I think that you can look at a lot of different players that could be that number
Zeke
one
Elliott's
pick
a similar
year.
player.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think when you look at Christian McCaffrey, you have to consider the worst part about it is that the coaching staff wants to save their behinds here.
Yes,
yeah, there you go.
Tookuses.
Like, yeah, I was like, what's my favorite PC word for
Tushies.
butt? They're derrieres, as some people would say. Not anyone that's my age. But I think they want to save their jobs, right? And that's the problem. McCaffrey's only going to get more and more use, and plus you have just an unstable quarterback. Gross. It's a tough situation. But let's also talk about a lot of people are chirping about the Rams Cardinals game. And I know that John Bunting says, OMG, Goff and Woods are looking amazing. By the way, Cooper Kupp just went into the end zone to make this a 27-0 lead that the Rams have over the Cardinals. And I think this is
405 yards, the 405. He is riding the 4. That is a perfect LA stat line right now.
76% completion rate, 10.9 yards per attempt. And look, this was, I think, a big question of the week is after we saw the Rams just get completely boat raced. Shellacked, crushed, whatever you want to say, by the Baltimore Ravens, the unstoppable machine that is the Baltimore Ravens. Could they show some respectability against a really bad defense? Looks like the answer is yes. 27-0, the Cardinals are falling to the Rams. And I think this is important because here's the deal. Sean McVay, I think at this point, this is what my just straight NFL column was about this week. Drink again. But it's two different columns. I'm referencing two different things.
You've referenced articles you've written 4 times so far today. So
keep the
four
tab
shots.
open because, 4 shots. Make sure you got a safe ride home, folks. You look at what the rest of the season is for the LA Rams. They're not going to the playoffs. Not going to happen. I think this is a lot about we're going to see, like, who is Sean McVay really? Because his official first punch has been taken away, right? Like, and it was taken away a long time ago. And I think you could actually give him a little bit of heat for the fact that it's taken him a long time to come up with any sort of counter punch here.
Well, I think a sneaky thing about Sean McVay is that he's kind of been conservative in big moments, which is the anti-McVay brand. Right? The McVay brand is that he's creative and he does all of these gadgety things and he's up-tempo, but actually his offense runs best when it is an establish-the-run operation.
Yeah, and I think, too, they're a run-based team.
Yeah.
You're right about that. And they've never been one to, like, go for it on 4th down.
No.
Or, I mean, they've generally taken the 3 points when it's there, but
that was the Saints game.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. There were several moments, I mean, in the playoffs when it felt like, I think Scott Pianowski said it on one of our podcasts, like it felt like my whole timeline broke up with Sean McVay during I think it was that Saints game, like you said, in the playoffs. And so he's shown these conservative tendencies before, but now it's about finding sort of, like I said, that counterpunch, because we saw it a little bit on Sunday Night Football against your Bears, your Rams and your Bears. They went power, they ran the ball really well, and that was enough to beat the Bears, but now they have to do that a little bit more to a point where it's enough to find them an identity going forward. Well, but that's more of a long push.
They are soundly beating the Cardinals, and I will say one of the excuse me, silver linings here is that Todd Gurley isn't just getting volume, but he's looking good doing it. He's starting to look like himself again, whether, you know, he's shaking off the mystery phantom injury that he had at the end of last year. Now it's been practically a full calendar year and he's looking the same again. Maybe it's the reshuffling of the offensive line that's taken place. I'm not quite sure, but it is nice to see him averaging 5.6 yards per carry, caught a pass for 20 yards. I think that is, and again, Matt is right. This matchup against the Cardinals defense is much easier, but I think if he can start to get Gurley looking more like himself, that is going to add health to the whole offense.
I hope so, because I do think that like running back value is one big conversation after another, mostly a circular one at this point, but I think this offense does work best when it has a running game and it can go off play action. Look, and play action is effective almost no matter how you're running the ball. The deception of it is the important part, not so much what's your run effectiveness, but it certainly helps to also, I think the biggest thing that has been absent for the Rams this year with Todd Gurley is his outrageous burst as a receiver. Because remember back to the Jeff Fisher days when everyone's like, why are we running out Benny Cunningham when Todd Gurley was a great pass catcher in college? He became this great pass catcher under Sean McVay. That's been almost completely absent from the offense, no matter how well he's run on the ground. So I think it's just about figuring things out the rest of the way for the Rams. But this is a really encouraging sign. And you look at, too, on their side in terms of the passing game. Obviously, you mentioned 405 yards for Jared Goff running right down that freeway. Well, the freeway runs right down the middle of the field because, let me tell you what, Robert Woods, 10 for 160. Tyler Higbee, 7 for 107.
No Gerald Everett in this one.
No Gerald Everett in this one.
Very generous.
Cooper Kupp, 6 for 65 and a touchdown on 6 targets.
You said it on FFL. Cooper Kupp was your reception perception player.
Yeah, it's nice. And then the guy I didn't like, they don't have any catches yet so far.
Nice
so, hey, what up?
Can we talk about Arizona a little bit? Because I think there are wrinkles to this offense that many people haven't really talked about at the top of the season, right? The thing that Cliff Kingsbury was going to do was bring this 4-wide spread offense. David Johnson was going to be out. None of that is the same right now. In fact, I don't think Kingsbury has employed a 4-wide offense since week 10. Instead, he's been using 2 tight end sets, and we know what's happened to David Johnson. Also worth noting, now that Chase Edmonds is back, Kenyon Drake remains the starter. He has 7 carries for 21 yards, so not the greatest, YPC, but still, in terms of volume, Chase Edmonds doesn't have a single tote yet this week. And David Johnson just has 1 carry, so he is still remaining on the bench. Charles Clay, he is being worked in. Now, I don't think these guys are, I don't think Charles Clay and who's the other tight end? I don't know.
Max Williams. Oh, Max Williams.
That's right.
Ravens
Double X.
second-round pick.
Max Williams. They have a ton of snaps, but not very many targets. I think they've only seen 1 or 2 apiece over the past 2 weeks since this new installation occurred. But I do think it's worth noting that there has been a change. So like Christian Kirk, who's your high ceiling guy, this week is being taken away, probably, most likely, by Jalen Ramsey. So he's not seeing a ton. Larry Fitzgerald has a big size advantage over Nickel Roby-Coleman in the slot here. So that's what we're seeing him do some stuff, particularly after the catch. But I think what we have to note is that there has been a change. So now we can diagnose these matchups a little bit better.
I completely agree, yeah. The 4-wide sets are pretty long gone at this point. And also, Kyler Murray just threw an interception that the Rams ran back for a touchdown. So it's 34-0, by the way, in this game now. Murray, this is the worst I've seen him play in quite some time. I talked about this, we were talking about this in the green room, how he definitely can thread that needle like no one else. Well, he tried to thread that needle a little too much there, and he throws a pick. I love Kyler Murray, no question, but I think this offense needs a lot more help. To Cliff Kingsbury's credit, where I'm kind of dogging Sean McVay about not being able to adjust, I think Kingsbury has done a pretty good job in terms of adjusting so far this year. Like you said, adjusting the personnel, adjusting the run packages to be more Kenyon Drake based, changing the offense too. And they clearly, they want to run 4 wide receivers, but their wide receivers are bad.
Andy Isabella isn't going to catch an 80-plus yard touchdown every week. I'd love to see him get more run here, but he hasn't drawn a single target yet this week. Also, when you're talking about Kenyon Drake, the thing that I was just immediately reminded of was the fact that I know we've already talked about it, but Josh Jacobs not being used in the receiving game. Here's Cliff Kingsbury, who is remaining incredibly malleable as the season progresses, as a rookie, willing to move. You have a veteran coach who's like, nope, it's not the way we do things. Our running backs, they're just not going to catch passes. Yeah. So another tip to Cliff, if you will.
Yeah, no question. Let's finish up here with the Denver game, where we do have the fourth quarter's just starting here, but the Broncos are up 17-10 over the LA Chargers. Drew Lock looks good. Drew Lock looks good. I mean, he's not pushing the ball downfield a ton, 6.5 yards per attempt, but 2 touchdowns, 116.8 passer rating. Had 2 early touchdowns to Cortland Sutton, who, I mean, he's just like a total baller. Like one of the catches of the year for his first one. I think this is good. This is a good sign for the Denver Broncos, because I don't think they want to be in a position where they have to draft a quarterback again next year. I think if they can get some stable play from Drew Lock here.
It's just a little bit problematic, though, right? Because you would like to see Drew Lock do. If you're John Elway, you want to be proven correct, right? You want to be right about this. But if you're a Broncos fan, are you kind of wishing Drew Lock doesn't do so well because the narrative on him has been that he's not particularly good, and now you're not going to go after a quarterback in the offseason, and so you're sitting in this like no man's land of can he, can't he?
The problem is, I think they have invested a second-round pick in Drew Lock, and we've seen teams move on from second-round picks before. I mean, and we've seen teams move on from top 10 picks before. But I always go back to like the Jimmy Clausen analogy when the Panthers completely bottomed out with Clausen. I think you have to have that type of year to be completely written off when you play a decent amount. If Lock goes out and plays like this, they're probably going to roll with him, maybe another veteran next year. But you also don't want to be, if you're John Elway and the Denver Broncos, you don't want to be in the veteran quarterback market again and have Marcus Mariota or Andy Dalton being your starting quarterback next year. You need to find a solution, because this problem has plagued you for so long. And I mean, look, they took another player in the second round ahead of Drew Lock, so it's not as if this is going to, suddenly, they should get complete credit for this, but it would get the problem off their back at least for one season. And I think there's players to like in Denver.
Do you think we're going to see Tyrod Taylor at some point in this game?
I don't think in this game. And
he's trending on Twitter.
Yeah,
the Twitters are chanting for him.
I know that people are talking about Tyrod Taylor, and I love Tyrod Taylor. I was one of the first people that ever said he should be the starter in Buffalo. Patrick Krall in the NFL Network newsroom, Bills fan. You know it to be true. I think there's a lot to like with Tyrod, but what's the point if you're the Chargers? You're not going to the playoffs. Rivers is probably not going to be your quarterback next year. It's just, it seems like a what's the point move. And do you really want to end Phillip Rivers' Chargers tenure by just kicking him in the dirt and moving on?
And what's more embarrassing, to bench someone and say he was hurt, the tackles were injured, the O-line wasn't sufficient, or to make him throw 7 picks in back-to-back games?
Well,
I guess we'll find out.
I guess we're going to find out. Quick
He's only
thoughts.
thrown 1 pick so far this game.
We're well off his normal pace. But hey, wait till the last drive. He'll throw one there. Right. Let's just quick thoughts on Sunday Night Football before we get out of here. I know we're both kind of on the same page with this matchup in terms of the running game being something we really want to watch for the Patriots.
Yeah, well, I also want to watch the distribution of targets through these receivers. Sanu's going to play, Dorsett's going to play, but how well are they going to play? We have 2 rookies in Jacoby Myers, and they have 2 rookies in Jacoby Myers, and N'Keal Harry could add a new wrinkle, a new element that the team certainly needs, maybe get some reps ahead of the postseason. So outside of Julian Edelman, what are we doing here? And I think some of that is going to, I'm hoping, be revealed this evening.
I hope so too, and I like what we've seen from Myers and what we've seen from Harry in limited glimpses. I think there's some redundancy. There's some redundancy between Sanu's skill set and Harry's skill set. There's also some redundancy between Edelman and Myers, especially in terms of usage. I do want to see how that plays out, though, because that's an important question. And again, I think as the Patriots, but it might not even be an important question, because as we turn the calendar to December here and we get closer to January, and the Patriots are trying to become more of a run-focused team. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, I still do really want to pay attention to how Sony Michel is used. I have a weird, I kind of feel like Sony Michel is good, even though he offers 10 games out of 16 where he tells you he's definitely not.
I mean,
I don't know what's wrong with me.
The thing about Michel that's so comfortable within this offense is that we know what he does.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no overlap in the skill set. It's like one of these things is not like the other. And while there is overlap between Sanu and Harry, I still feel like Harry is the which one of these things is not like the other.
I think that's
right.
true.
And so Michel has that too because and if you look at James White's numbers, once Rex Burkhead came back, his volume has dipped precipitously.
He hasn't been usable like all year. And frankly, for his own right, Rex Burkhead has kind of been dust as well. So I think that's good news for Sony Michel, as you mentioned.
Did we mention real quick? For Monday night, Adam Thielen is out. We should talk about that.
So I saw a couple people chirping about the fact, like, oh, they couldn't announce this a couple hours earlier before Sunday kickoff. Dude, give me a break. Like, that's not their job. They don't care about you and your fantasy team. They don't play till Monday, so that's why they announced it. Hey, they announced it before Monday. That could have been even worse for you. You had plenty of time to figure it out until then. In the chat, John Bunting says, until next week's shows, good luck with your fantasy teams. Let the smack talk begin. I think that is a perfect way to close it out. Good luck to you all if you have made it to the fantasy playoffs. And if you didn't, play daily fantasy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's good times.
Yeah, it is good times. We will see you all next week. Enjoy Sunday Night Football. And make sure you subscribe to the Yahoo Fantasy Football Podcast, where we will be doing this, but in more audio form, no video, later on.